Welcome to the XY Advisor Podcast, a global community of financial advisors sharing and learning with one another to drive the positive evolution of financial advice. To get involved, go to xyadvisor.com or simply download the XY Advisor app.
What gives me confidence about investment decisions? Rigorous fundamental research, with portfolio managers focused on the long term, who look beyond the spreadsheets to understand the companies they invest in, from breakroom to boardroom, who know the only way to get a 360-degree view is to go around the world to get it. Can I rely on in-depth research to give me steadfast confidence? With Capital Group, I can.
Welcome back to the XY Advisor Podcast. I'm Fraser Jack, and today I'm joined by Amanda Thompson. Hello, Amanda.
Hey, Fraser.
Thank you for joining me today. Now, let's start with you. Tell the listeners a quick overview of yourself.
Oh, geez. Financial planner for going on too many years, I think. Well over 17 now. Started off in the major banks and then slowly went to boutique and then now my solo show.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, you've got your own business. Tell us the name of your business.
Yep, it's got Endurance Financial, and that started 3 years ago. And it's a small business, as you would understand, being a only financial planner. But it's got a wide array of clients. But the majority of them are small business or self-managed super funds. So family business or self-employed people, Yep. Self-managed super funds.
Yep, fantastic. So you pretty much started your business from scratch and grew from nothing, and we'll get into that sort of story in a second. But before we do that, let's go back in time. Tell us your journey and what got you into financial advice in the first place.
I was starting my own personal training business, believe it or not, and decided that while you're starting a business like that, way back in the day where it wasn't the in thing, most people did it before and after work. So I thought that if I was going to go and start this personal training business, I needed to earn some real money in between, and off I went to a temp agency. Never worked in an office before in my life. Always been swimming teacher, netball, all those type of sporty things. And, typical Amanda attitude was I can do anything. So temp agency. The next day I got posted out to my first job that happened to be just at the end of financial year at Colonial First State, back in the day where people rush to put their checks in before end of financial year for their super contributions. So my first job was Colonial First State, basically for 2 days collating and reconciling checks and taking applications.
Yes, fantastic. So back in the day when it was all checks and applications and double checking and signatures and looking at things before you could deposit the money.
Yep. So, and then just loved it so much that they decided they loved me as well. And after a 2-day small temp job, it went into being PA to the business development team, and then encouraged by them off to be a financial planner.
Yeah, amazing, isn't it? The going off to get a real job part-time has led into something that's a hell of a lot more. And
I love it. And it's, from the moment I stepped into that office, I absolutely loved it. So still do.
It's always an interesting journey listening to how people sort of fell into the profession, as we all did. Now, so you started there, and then you went off to work for the banks, I guess.
I did. I actually took a small job at an accounting firm after I was qualified enough to be a financial planner, and somehow landed a job at Westpac back then. And I got offered the job at exactly the same day I found out I was pregnant.
Right.
So I turned down the job because I didn't. So I was very honest and said, I'm going to be having a baby in however many months, and the guy who employed me is still around in financial planning circles, and he said, we'll wait, and he did.
Wow, yeah, that's great. Yeah.
He rang me and said, are you ready? I think he rang me probably 2 weeks after my first daughter was born. Are you ready to join? So newly married, new baby, and new job in the corporate world, all in the 1 year.
Oh, talk about a whirlwind. Okay, so then, so that led you into financial planning. Tell me about the process from there. Where did you go to from there?
So I was part-time. 3 days a week at just a local branch, so retail planner. And, it's funny, I look back on it and it's, you had your home loan manager, your retail financial planner, and just the staff, the cashiers and a manager, really. Yep. And you really worked as a team to get your branch up and going and things like that. And loved it. In my first year, I qualified for Westpac's financial planning conference on a part-time level. So I went off to conference and then found a whole new love once I got to conference and came back from conference and said, I want to do business financial planning. And that was my goal for the next 3 years. So I set my target. My target was middle markets back in the Westpac day, and I got there. I got there.
Yep. Fantastic. And how did you get there? Like, what's your style of financial planning? Did it suit the bank environment?
You say that already knowing, Fraser. No, it did not. It did not. The giggle that you and I had when we first chatted was that, and Westpac did, and I'm sure many of the other banks did psychological personality profiling, and I failed dismally from whatever they had as their checklist for a financial planner. I was not a salesperson in any way, shape or form, and the man who employed me just giggled and said, there's something about you, I'm going to take a chance. And so he did, but I'm sure it paid off for him as well, because I happened to generate an astronomical amount of money for the bank, but not based on the banking way. It was pure, I think I saw more clients. So I was one of those, I saw so many clients as opposed to having this big bang for dollar of each client.
Yeah. I've certainly spoken to you before, and you definitely are a people person, right? You're a person that loves to have conversations with people and banter and chat and all those sorts of things. And so, definitely the fit wasn't quite the product role or the numbers role. It was definitely around the people.
But it was, but it really did, as much as the bank and their KPIs and the way that they work didn't suit me, I learned so much from the vast array of clients, and not just about financial planning strategies, just in general. I think I was 25, 26 years old. So, as I said, new mum, a lot of things were brand new to me. Even the simplest thing of, I had this client, and I still remember, it was like it was yesterday, a man called Charlie who had a really bad experience with a financial planner, and someone had put him in a mortgage fund and told him that it was secure and all of those things. And he was so tentative, so I was put into play to try and save the relationship. And we did. We saved it. And then there's this beautiful old man. I remember his last name. I remember where I met him. We're going back nearly 20 years. And then maybe a few months later, Charlie rang me in a tears. Amanda was like, "What's wrong, Charlie?" He said, "I won Tats Lotto."
Wow, that's an incredible story, isn't it?
And he was, "I'm going to lose my pension. What do I do with this money?" And the absolute newfound fear of having money that this battling man had his whole life was this eye-opener to me. And then unfortunately, Charlie passed away a few months later, and then a whole new experience for me came when estranged family started ringing, wanting to know where Charlie's money was and how much he had and what did he do with his Tats Lotto, and he would have wanted to gift us money. And so I learned a lot about estate planning right then and there as well, without even going down that path at that stage.
Absolutely.
So
I was going to say to you then that I think a lot of planners know this already, but they spend a lot of time being a therapist in a sort of way, as you just mentioned that with that story there, how much time do you think of a financial planning role is about being a therapist and a coach and those sorts of things that aren't even financial planning related?
For me, it's a lot. You could probably ring any of my clients, and our relationship starts with me saying that most people will say their first discovery session's an hour, but when you're with me, you've always got to double that because it's talking. It's talking, and we obviously have a very heavily regulated industry, so I tick all of those boxes, but at the end of the day, I let people tell me their story, and half of it's not even money orientated because I've got to figure out who they are to be able to deliver what it is that they want in a way that they're going to keep doing that. I tell them that young couples, I'll say now to the wife, sometimes I'll say now your financial planner, other than your husband, I'm the next person you tell when you're pregnant because everything else changes. We have a giggle. Like I'm the person that you'll ring and tell absolutely everything to. So, yeah, I've had a fair few interesting cases through the years.
It is, isn't it? I was talking to someone the other day, and they were talking about the idea of a secret. Financial advisors are often the people that get to know the secrets about clients. Yep.
And if you truly become that, people throw it around, but there is that trusted advisor saying, and if you really do become that, They do. They tell you things that you don't necessarily want to know, but they do tell you sometimes, or ask you. And I used to lecture at the Ambulance Academy a long time ago, and they used to try and get me to become a paramedic. Amanda, you love your anatomy and things like that. And I just said, I can't leave work at work. I know I'm that type of person. And 17 years on, I'm so glad I didn't because I still can't leave work at work. I'll be waking up in the middle of the night worried about clients or...
Yeah, fair enough. Now let's go back to your story. Tell us, you learned a lot about estate planning. Tell us where did you go from there?
So I worked my rear end off to become a business planner with Westpac. And so I went up the ladder of business planner and then was lucky enough to, again... much to a lot of people's, I suppose, dislike, I worked and made relationships and really got where I did within Westpac in particular because of the and I'll happily say this. My direct manager back in the day was Dan O'Day. So well known in the financial planning industry, and he supported me through absolutely everything. He had confidence in me. He mentored me to the point where he made me the planner that I became at Westpac. No doubt about it. Yeah. And I love that. So
now this wasn't a 9-to-5 job, right?
No, it definitely wasn't. And try having a child. Reality is, and people may be scoffing listening to this, reality is the bank days and the culture in the bank back in those days, it was tough for a woman. It really was tough in that business area for a woman. So I'd have to rush home and pick my daughter up from creche and be the good wife and have dinner on the table and bathing, Bella, my daughter, and then I would start work again. So I may have left before everyone else in the office, but I was up working till 1, 2 o'clock most mornings.
Yep. And you mentioned back then it was difficult. I think probably people find it difficult from time to time still now, although it's probably changed a little bit. How do you see that?
I think it has changed, and I think that in a way, COVID, for a lot of advisors, old school, new school advisors, it's forced different thought processes on people of how things are done, work from home type scenarios, time management. You even, and I know it sounds a little bit sexist, but even men who are financial planners that potentially became stay-at-home dads over COVID, that have to homeschool kids and keep their business going and things like that, they probably they probably got an insight into what maybe their wives or what I did back in the day. Yep. I worked 3 days a week, but my phone was always on, and there'd be times where the phone would ring when the kids were crying, or and I'd still take it. And most of my clients, you align yourself with your clients. So all of my clients knew I had children.
Yes.
So if they rang me and kids were in the background, they were appreciative that I was answering the phone while I was in mum time. So most of my clients were very, very understanding. But it was still tough.
Yeah, exactly. And you're exactly right. It's very authentic and human being to speak to people and have your kids in the background. And I think you're right about the COVID scenario then. And I guess for me, from my point of view, I guess the more we can just talk about it, make it a normal conversation, the more it becomes, anybody that picks up on those sorts of things when they don't realise they're doing it. So
yeah.
Yeah, so let's go back to your story. Tell me about the as you grew and through that that period in your life, and then tell me also about the introduction of your athlete side.
Again, things in Amanda's life happened in an interesting way. Unfortunately, my marriage broke down. I shouldn't say unfortunately, because people grow, and my ex-husband's gone on to be married and have another child, and I'm happy with my 2 girls. So, but back in that day, unfortunately, with an 8 and a 4-year-old, when your marriage disintegrates and you're working like a machine to support your family and grow, I struggled a fair bit. So I decided to leave the banks. I could not physically and mentally keep up with looking after 2 children practically full time. And I went off and worked for someone else. And then, unfortunately, again for me, I got melanoma. I got melanoma and decided that I would just tackle it head on by becoming an Ironman and starting my own business at the same time.
So extreme determination to make a decision to fight for your family, fight for your girls, and fight for all these other things. Took us through that time.
It's all a bit of a blur, to tell you the truth. Training for an Ironman is tough, but it takes a certain mindset. And again, people will either agree, understand, or be shaking their head at me right now. But that mindset gave me the strength. That challenge to do something gave me the strength to do other things that weren't in my control. So I often say Ironman training was in my control. Cancer was out of my control. So while I was working on my business and training for an Ironman, that the thing that wasn't in my control still had all my strength without it knowing.
Yeah. So health, raising a family, working, trying to run a business or work at least full time, and the training that goes into that sort of things, that doesn't fit in a day, right?
No, it doesn't. And and there's a little giggle that goes around triathlon circles. It's called the law of 2.5, and there's 3 important things in your life: work, family, and triathlon. But there's only room for 2.5. Yeah. So, but you make it work. So what gave with me? I don't know. The balance would swing from week to week. So was there a balance? No. I don't necessarily believe that life is balanced. If you're balanced and you feel your life's balanced, my take, and sorry if I insult anyone, is that it must be quite boring.
This is a really interesting opinion of yours, because I've heard this before. So the word balance to you, as you mentioned, equals boring. So Yep. You actually embrace the imbalance.
I do. I embrace the imbalance, and I liken my life to the seesaw. And when you're a kid and you go to the playground, and if you're a family of 3 or you're with 3 people, there's only room for one on each end of the seesaw. You never wanted to be that person in the middle of the seesaw. That was boring. You wanted to be the one going up and down. And the only thing about being in the middle of the seesaw is that you could actually control it a little bit by stomping on one side or taking turns. But I think that when you're passionate about something, whether it's work, whether it's your family, whether it's triathlon or an extracurricular type activity, if you have got that mindset and you want that mindset, you have to give your all. So how can everything be balanced? With me, with triathlons tend to be chosen strategically in a year so that I can have that time. So year 12 for my daughter last year, there was no triathlons in amongst that because my focus was, unfortunately, year 12 going through COVID and year 12. So that had to be my focus. And work at that periods of times would drop off. So not as many client appointments, not as many reviews, all of those type of things. So I'm still very organised. So it's not a disorganised imbalanced, it's an organised imbalance.
Yep, has to be. Now, it's not just triathlons, of course, it's elite triathlons, it's Ironman distance triathlons. Do you want to talk us through that?
Yeah, as in what it entails,
for people that don't realise the distance, let's quickly just cover that.
It's a 3.8 kilometre swim. It's a 180k bike ride, and then you're chucking a marathon at the end of that, which is 42.2 kilometres.
That's incredible. That is incredible. Now, how long does something like that take you?
So at the moment I haven't broken 11 hours. So my best time's 11:21, and I have entered one in December this year. So I'm hoping to become a part of the 10-hour club. Whoa. So even if it's 10:59 with a 10 in front of it, I'll be happy. Well, actually, I probably won't be happy. You always want to compete against yourself. So whatever I get, if I do get a personal best in December, next time I'll always want to go quicker.
Yeah, so it's an extreme endurance sport, and of course, as I think you mentioned to me before, it's not a run or a ride; it's a race.
Yes, it definitely is a race. I do half Ironman as well, and now I'm becoming quite competitive in my age group in that. So I've qualified for World Championships a couple of times in my age group, which is pretty exciting. Got to take my daughter to Nice, France, a couple of years ago. But when I'm in Australia, I'm knocking on that podium door and it's killing me. So I've definitely got a fire in my belly for that podium at that distance.
Yep. Now, how does this? Do you have a coach, by the way, for that?
I do. His name's Matt, and we have been together for 8 years now, so nearly longer than my marriage. I tell him, he knows me probably better than anyone. Yep, and then he calls me Thompson, so I don't even have a name. It's just Thompson. So, yeah.
And tell us about that. So obviously, you want to compete in an elite area. You have a coach. How much does that coaching that he does in the sporting arena carry over to your business?
It's probably not it doesn't carry over in the sense that we work as a team. So he is very much a team. He's on my team. He has to understand, and he does because he runs his own business. So he understands the constraints of having children, parenting and working as well. So it's more a team. It's teamwork. So if I say to him, I've had a shocker of a day, so I actually didn't train yesterday, and he just happened to ring because he noticed that there were no figures. And the first thing is work or kids. That was his question to me. Work or kids? Why haven't we trained today? Work or kids? And we adjust the program. So he has to be adaptable. I have to be adaptable, and that's how that works. So
it's a fairly staunch accountability relationship then.
Oh yeah, it's always on me. It's always on me.
Yeah. And how much in that same line of thinking, how much of that is what you bring to your clients?
Oh, completely. I run, as you've said, it's a people type relationship with me. I will take phone calls at any time. I will be adaptable at any time. I'm like the mother that doesn't say no, though. So for most of my clients, I never say no.
But are you keeping them accountable for their actions and behaviours?
Yeah, always. And in really difficult ways as well. So most recently, one of my clients actually passed away 2.5 years ago, and I have been at this point in time having conversations with his wife saying, Paul would want this. You know that Paul needs you to do this. We've spoken about it. I know Paul would want me to push you. So yep. I actually, it's, and I'll be honest with you, even if it's on the phone, there's tears coming down my cheek when I say this is not easy for me to say. I miss Paul as well, but I know that the day before Paul passed away, he told me he wanted me to do this with his family. So I'm a woman of my word. Yeah. And so I keep doing it, but it's not easy having to tell her that her late husband wanted her to do this. She's still missing him every day. Yeah. And so that's an example of you. Like, I'm even getting emotional talking to you about it. It's not a fun thing to do, but it's what I promised that I would do, and it's why at the end of the day Paul chose me as the financial planner for his family, because he believed that I would do that for him.
Yep, wonderful. That's an amazing story. Let's go back. Starting your business from scratch, deciding to, open up your own business and go out there. Obviously, it's a difficult and strange and weird and wonderful time, and there's a lot of, mixed ideas, emotions. Tell us about your decision-making process that led to you starting your business.
Believe it or not, as the client I was just talking about, Paul, was the catalyst for it. I was working for someone when I first met them, and the owner of the business, all within his rights, wanted me to take a different path with them, and I couldn't do it. And that it's not a one incident thing. It's just like people that I have not found a business that runs how I want to run. So I went home that night and called my old boss, who I said to him, I am thinking of doing this. And he went, about time, Tomo. How can I help you? And I was just like, wow, he said, when you left us, you didn't take a client. We sat down and said, we know these clients will follow you. You are a stand-up person and I will back you. I'll go into business with you. He actually offered to go into business with me, and I said, no, I'm doing it on my own. And so the very next day I gave notice. So without even a business plan, when I make my mind up, I make my mind up. And so the very next day I gave notice, and then frantically spent that weekend doing a business plan, and a very good business plan. I believe in them. I do them every single year. I do them for triathlon and I do them for my business, and sat down and figured out exactly what I needed to earn. And it's the first time I'd ever really thought about how much I needed to earn. But I had 2 children to support and bills to pay. So sat down and worked out, well, this is what I need. This is how many clients I need, because I know I'm going to charge X amount per client per, annual type review fee, which is how I run my business on an annual fee basis. And then worked that out and then said, okay, well, this is what I need. I'm giving myself 6 months. So I gave myself a time limit. Gave myself 6 months to get up and running, and had a pocket of cash to make sure that I could financially survive with the girls. And, the good news story for me is I didn't spend a cent of it. So what happened was that clients who chose to seek me out and follow me, or clients that hadn't gone with me in the past, were so excited that I was out on my own doing my own thing that I was quite lucky, if that's the word, that I had an influx of clients almost immediately.
I think it's the power of relationships, right?
I think so. When I told one of my clients that, or someone that I'd been talking to, that I couldn't help her anymore because I was moving on, and she hadn't signed up with anyone, and she said, have you thought of names? She was so excited. She said, have you thought of names? I said, well, actually, my mum's come up with one. And, it was my mum that come up with Endurance Financial, and this particular client was friends with and having coffee at the next table was John Bertrand from the yacht, John Bertram. And she said, oh, John, listen to this girl's business name that she wants. And he went, I love it. and then the next day that particular client said, I'm with you, and can I introduce you to XYZ?
Wow.
So not only,
That's an amazing, and I do think the name absolutely. I think your mum knows you better than anybody. The name absolutely suits, doesn't it? It's the fact that you wanted to run your own race, and it's a long race.
It is.
Keep going.
It is.
Yeah.
Yep. And my clients. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was going to say, of course, those people that don't know, John Bertram was involved in the America's Cup Challenge many years ago.
Yep.
Was
very Australia too?
Dragging the America's Cup away from the Americans after 130-something years. So going back to the name, obviously then it's about setting up and getting some clients. As you mentioned, some clients followed you in and 6 months in. It's a lot of work though, isn't it, setting up a business and also trying to provide advice?
It is, and because I'd always been an advisor under a different banner, even that process, trying to find out who you were going to be licensed through, I was lucky enough, as I've been very loyal with employment in the past. I actually reached out to a couple of BDMs to say, who do you think I should go to? And one in particular said, go to Dover, of which I did. So within 5 months of me starting my business, I was also mixed up in the Dover debacle.
Debacle. Tell us about that moment when you found that out and then you had to find something else, a new home.
I cried. I was just like, my luck, how's this, what happens now? I actually cried because, again, for me, it was a learning curve as you put so much trust in. I chose Dover because how they sold themselves to me, not because someone told me to go there, and they seemed to believe in my fee for service and how I ran and what I did and how I wanted to do it. And then all of a sudden to be scrambling, trying to find a new dealer group, but more so than that, being tainted by someone else's brush was really difficult for me. I found that really difficult, that it was hard to find. I'd never experienced anything like it, that as soon as you said you're from Dover, they didn't want to know you. Or there are other companies trying to grab us basically and make money off us. That's how I felt. So it's like, oh, we're going to be your saviour, but it's going to cost you to be your saviour. So that was difficult. I actually, with my financial planning career, that would be my biggest struggle, is being tainted by someone else's brush.
Yeah, found yourself at the bottom of the seesaw.
Yep, very much so. But, my clients pulled me through in that, not them in particular, but that I had to go back and remember why I did this and why I was doing that. And at the end of the day, the advisor is still me, and I still give the advice. It doesn't matter who I'm with, that my advice is still my advice. I just needed to go and find another dealer group that let me do what I wanted to do, how I wanted to do it, obviously within the laws of financial planning.
Exactly right. And obviously there was a lot of other, people in that boat as well, trying to scramble. So it was a very busy and hectic time. Let's fast forward a little bit to now. Tell us about the business now and how it's evolved.
So the business, it's strange. So my life is evolving at a rate of knots in that. So the business is evolving in that I still have not advertised. In 3 years, I have not had to advertise for clients. I get referrals from clients and other people that I've come across. I still pride myself on only my mother and my uncle being my only pensioners. So I do not sit in a space where I don't have the capacity. So being on my own, I just do not have the capacity to deal with Centrelink and pensions and the ever evolving rules. So I always tell my mum she is so lucky that she is on my books.
So all your clients are pre-retirees?
They're very similar to myself, most of them. So how old? I'm 45. So I think that we're going from about maybe 40s to 55s would be the majority of my client base, and young business owners or self-employed people that are, just recently we changed someone from a sole trader to a business structure. So it's, if you can see me, my eyes light up when I talk about business and structure. I love it. So, and not just that, I love educating. So it's not just the figures do this. I like educating people as to the long-term benefits of why. Yep.
And so as you mentioned, a lot of your clients are just like you, because you probably spend a lot of time telling them about your life at the same time as helping them with their life. You see that synergy?
Yeah, I'm never ever afraid to share my wins and losses. So obviously being single and, working in a relationship that had two incomes to all of a sudden one, I'm got a lot of ideas and beliefs in how I'll bring my children up and what I want to do with the girls and how to protect them from losing their money or having to put themselves at risk. So I'll talk about the good, bad and ugly of decisions I've made in life or people I know that have made in life, but I will advise as if you were my family. No matter who you are, I will never ever but that's how I figure out what I want to do for someone is if this was my brother, if this was my mum, if this was whoever, what would I really be telling them? And that's what I do.
This is a really key point because sometimes you're in an advice relationship with a client and you just want to tell them the nice stuff or what they want to, what they want to hear, and you don't want to go to that level where you're saying to them, no, like if it's your brother or sister, you might tell them straight, between the eyes, or you know that that relationship's strong enough to endure something like that.
Yep. No, I won't hold back because if you're going to be my client, you need to know who I am and I need to know who you are from the outset. Otherwise, it won't be a long-term relationship. So I don't get me wrong, telling the bad stuff or telling the not so great stuff, I really, really struggle with it. But it's not fair if I don't.
Yep. Yeah, it's a really important piece of the financial advisor journey to be able to have those horrible and difficult conversations, but not to shy away from them.
Yeah, but I also I run my life on being a role model for my children. So I also look at as another reason I left the bank. So I wanted to go home every night comfortable with what I'd done and comfortable with who I was, and be able to sleep without any guilt of doing something I didn't believe in. And that's what I do every single day now. I go home and, the perils of running your own business on your own is you can't necessarily share some of the not so great things with people. Yep. Then I found out Paul passed away. I was in the car with my daughter and I had to tell her. So I had no choice but to share some of work with one of my children, and that was hard in itself. So,
yeah, incredible. Now, some of what you're doing with your clients, you mentioned businesses and you love working with businesses. Are you working with their business plan and joining their financial plan with their business plan?
Yes, yep. So a lot of, as I said, I work with businesses that are either just past their growth phase or just, starting out. I'm very, very big on financial planning, on business planning. So I'll do both and I'll do everything. So I on several occasions have found myself working in a business in their offices for weeks on end. So I get to know how the business actually runs, where things can change, all of that as well. So you can nearly be a business advisor to what's going on as well. I've had years of experiences with businesses that have both succeeded and I've seen ones that fail. So you can see the telltale signs sometimes, especially inherited businesses. You can tell which kids are going to run their mum and dad's businesses into the ground and which ones aren't. So
the ones that get it and the ones that don't. Tell me about that from a point of view of running a financial planning business. Are you able to charge as a business planner as well as a financial planner, or do you just charge for one?
I just charge financial planning, and they'll often be project fees. It's the benefit of being able to charge flat fees that aren't commission based is that it'll be a financial planning fee based on a project. I'll always give an invoice I'm very structured in what I do, so I'll give a letter of engagement that basically breaks down the areas that I'd love to look at. So then they can break that down and say, no, we don't want that at this time. We don't want that at this time. So everything's costed to what they want. And then more often than not, they go, actually, no, we'll come back and we will do that what we said we wouldn't do. So, and I've done it all of the time. So that way people don't miss out on what they really need and then know what they also should have and come back to it.
Yep. So it makes sense. Yep. You work out what they need. You menu it all out of all the things you can help them with, put a price on each one and they can choose off that. Yeah,
especially businesses. So businesses in their own right would often be partnerships. So it's not always husband and wife or brothers, or it's often 2-3 families, essentially that are running the businesses that I come across. So as well as looking at the business, it's not the same on both sides of the shareholder equation either. So often I'll branch out into personal on each side as well. So it's always very, very detailed, and that way each individual can choose their personal part of it as well as the business part of it.
Fantastic. And it's wonderful that you've built that all on referrals too.
Yes.
So tell us where to from here. What does the next sort of 6 months, 12 months, couple of years look like for you?
So I have just brought on, thank goodness, a personal assistant, a lovely lady named Lee, who is going to be my saviour, because as well as financial planning, I have embarked on keynote speaking. So a bit of the story that you've heard goes a long way, much deeper than we've discussed. And I really am in the business of helping people. And there is a lot of my story that people tell me really could help other people, whether they're in financial planning or not. So it's not necessarily a financial planning bias. And so I'm trying to, in COVID, typical Amanda nature, can't pick the best times to do anything, but in COVID I've embarked upon some personal story, like keynote speeches for a couple of places. So always open to looking for more and starting to work on how to do that. And I'm writing a book.
Wow, fantastic! We look forward to reading that too when it comes out. You certainly do like to run your own race, and as you mentioned, it's usually an endurance race. As an elite triathlete, I should say. Amanda, thanks for coming and sharing your story. If someone wanted to find you or get hold of you, what's the best way for them to continue the conversation?
Yep, so they can email me, amanda@enduranceFinancial.com.au, or my website is amandathompson.com.au.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your story. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it, another episode of the XY Advisor podcast. I'm Fraser Jack, and I'm joined by Emily Blanche. Hey, Emily.
Hey, Fraser. How you going?
I'm tremendous, thank you. And of course, it's our favourite time of the week where we get to do some amazing shout outs to really cool XY community members. And who have we got today?
Today, we are giving a dual shout out. So first of all, to John Hielos for sparking a discussion on ongoing service packages. So he is looking to refurbish, give his packages a makeover and go for the less is more approach, and was keen to get other advisors' thoughts and experiences on what they are doing in their business. And then shout out to Kelly Greenaway, who jumped in with a really thoughtful comment and also shared her service packages and fee schedule. This was really well received by the community. I know advisors love to look under the bonnet and get a sense of what advisors are charging and how they're doing that. So massive shout out to Kelly for being so open and generous in sharing that document, which now lives in the Resource Centre for anyone to grab.
Fantastic. And if anybody doesn't know where the Resource Centre is, what's the best way for them to find it?
You can head to the platform, and then on the left side menu there is a tab that says Resources. Click onto that and it will take you to the Resource Centre. There is a treasure trove of documents and files, templates, all categorised across the different areas of advice. So you can go browsing, explore, fill your toolkit with as much or as little as you like.